All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me for our weekly session on real estate investing. This is Danny speaking from California. I'm glad to be back, back in California after traveling for 10 days in the Midwest. Last week I did a live session like this one from the Chicago field office. It was kind of strange because we had multiple events happening at the same time, so it was a little bit challenging to speak here while like just around the across the world there was another event going on. Thank you for joining me. I hold these sessions on a weekly basis on Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And the whole purpose is to get to know you, to engage with you, to talk about real estate investing. I bring a topic. You can join the topic with questions. You can ask questions that are not necessarily related to the topic. Let's just put it this way. This is an opportunity for me to talk a little bit, to chat a little bit, to express my thoughts, my idea, my experience with you. So I always like the opportunity to do that. The way I go about it is I feel if I educate people, they see what we are all about, and hopefully you'll engage with us in investing activity. Two things I want to mention before we start. First of all, I want to wish everyone happy Christmas, happy holidays, happy winter break, happy New Year, whatever it is you're celebrating. So I want to wish everybody that, and of course a great weekend. Two things I got a feedback in the past few days from different investors. One is one said that I never talk about Simply Do It, my company. He says I watch so many of your videos. You never talk about like what you guys are doing. So I may add something like this towards the end because a lot of I got that comment that I talk about investing but not about us. So I'll do that as a feedback. What was the second feedback that I received? I'll come back. Something else that someone said. By all means, feel free to ask questions about real estate investing. I primarily focus about rentals. We talk about a little bit about flips as well, residential, US, and I'll be honest. Doesn't mean I'll know what the answer for every question. I've been doing it for 15 plus years on a very large scale in multiple states around the country, and that's how we go about investing and helping others to invest as well. The one thing I do want to mention, we record this in 3 channels at the same time. So this is Facebook Live, which is in the recording, and we have YouTube Live as well going on, and on our podcast. So you can consume this however you want. Podcast just in audio, YouTube or Facebook. And now I remember what I wanted to say. I want to thank everyone. A lot of people actually, when I meet them in person or chat with them online, they say we watch your videos. We can't join the live, but we actually watch a lot of your videos, the recording. So thank you for that. If you're watching the recording or listening to the recording, feel free to interact as well. Put a comment or anything. That'll be terrific. I really appreciate it. We try to respond back to anyone who puts a comment after the fact or after the live. So that's the two things I wanted to say. With that said, again, I have a topic that in mind for today, but feel free to ask your questions while I speak about the topic, or doesn't have to be directly related to the topic. Hopefully, we'll keep it within the realm of real estate investing. The topic that I want to talk about is why single family homes. What makes single family homes such a unique or special in the United States type of an investment vehicle? And when I say single family homes, maybe what I'm referring to. Why not other things? And I'm not saying no to other things, right? Everybody will find their own alternative or what works for them, and that's fine. Doesn't mean single family homes the only or the best. But I'm just going to share with you why I love single family homes so much compared to other investment vehicles. Primarily, I'm probably going to talk about why not the multifamily. When I say multi, I probably mean 5 and up type of properties, and not the duplex or the triplex, which are for me is just a derivative or similar or in the close to the single family home residential type of investment. So let's talk about first of all why single family homes. Why I find single family homes such a great investment vehicle in the US. So first of all, the United States economy is based on the households. Most US households live in single family homes, right? If you take, if you're not really familiar with the United States, you would think that a lot of people are living in New York in apartments or condos or co-ops or whatever, something like that, which are not single family homes. If you are in the San Francisco Bay Area or Silicon Valley, a lot of people do live in single family homes, but a lot of people actually live in townhomes, which is it's a version of a single family home, let's say, or some explexes. But remember, those are the kind of extreme, the other areas as well, kind of extreme points, because when you take off the 10 million in the Bay Area and the 10 million, let's say in New York, and maybe another 10 million somewhere that are living in those kind of an expensive areas where real estate is relatively expensive, and they have to live in a different form of housing other than single family homes. By the way, a lot of the Bay Area people and a lot of people in New York do live in single family homes outside of Manhattan, maybe outside of the the city of San Francisco. I'm not saying all of them do, but remember, this is a country of more than 300 million people population-wise, and most people do live in single-family homes. So first of all, if people live in the single-family homes, and that's what the economy is based on, you want to be attached to the strongest vehicle out there, the single-family home. That's one thing. Second, single-family homes, it's a cliche, but was and still is the American dream. People don't dream typically of, I want to live in an apartment or I want to live in a co-op, right? Maybe some do, but most want to go and graduate to the point, then they live in a single family home. Some of them, live in a startup home, sometimes they call, like a young couple, just got married, no kids or first kids, they may get the first house and it's just a smaller one, it's something that can afford. And you can see that then they move on and graduate to their second house or maybe a third house. So with the white picket fence, believe it or not, this is the American dream still. So you want to be part of that American dream because people want to have that, that kind of a dream or that kind of an asset. The single family is a very stable asset and it's the American dream. Don't, it's a cliche, but don't, override it, don't dismiss it at all. Single family homes tend to be the more stable or risk, or tolerant to recessions. Usually single family homes, or historically, when the market goes up, they are the first to go up and the most. And when the market goes down, they are the last to go down and least, right? I'm not saying they're not, but they're relatively, right? People in the United States have been telecommuting to work, for years. That has been before, the internet was invented. So people who have an office, let's say a small office of 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not talking about big corporations, but a lot of people, go to, commute to a small office, and they maybe 4 of them sitting in the office, and the economy slows down. What do? They scale down, move back home, work from home, right? Garage and home office, and maybe meet once a week in a WeWork or something like this. And they're neglecting the commercial side of it because they can still work from home, right? So that's not a problem. So single family homes are more resistant or more resilient to the economy. It's not, it's not economy proof or recession proof, but it's more resilient. When you talk about analyzing and understanding, a transaction, when it comes to single family home, you know what? It's rather easy, right? Can you get a quote rather quickly for the insurance? Yes. Do you know how much it's going to be in an inspection, costing of an inspection for the house? Pretty much. Maybe not 100% accurate, but close. Can you have a good estimate on the rent? Absolutely. A lot of those financial factors, you can actually rather easy with all the information that we have, get rather quickly, okay? When you're talking about multifamily, and I'm not talking about 4plex, I'm talking about, let's say, 10plex, 20plex, I'm not even talking about the big ones, but the smaller ones, you will find that they are very challenging to analyze. Why? Number one, there's a straight connection between the occupancy and the rent to the value. That's number one. Number two, from my experience, many times when you go after those small multifamily, it's considered probably a C or a D class family. It's not A and B. Usually it's owned by a person and not a corporate, maybe held as an LLC, but just a person is holding it. And to get financial data and information about the current status is a nightmare, right? Not always, but many times. They don't respond, they don't have it organized, they know a little, get the leases. Usually those type of brokers and type of owners, let me just make sure it's all set here, are more difficult to work with. I don't know why someone wants to sell and they're making it difficult, but I can tell you after doing it for many years, the multi, not the big ones, right? The smaller ones, they are more hard and difficult to gather the data and and process it in order to make a decision, financial decision or other decisions. So that also makes those type of information much harder, right? Go to a single family home. My guess, within an hour to 3, you probably have most of the information available and research or available for you to analyze it, right? Talk about the multi, it'll take you days, and not even that is going to be incomplete. Not always, but many, many times that has been my experience. That's a nightmare, right? Now, talk about liquidation, right? We know real estate is not a liquid asset. It's very difficult to buy a property on Wednesday and sell it on Thursday, or buy it on Friday and sell it a week later. It takes time, there's a process, it's more complex, right? Now, when you talk about liquidating a single family home, selling, let's say use a more, you want to sell for one reason or another, it's going to be rather easy or easier. Why? The potential buyer pool for your house is much larger than the potential buyer pools for your fourplex or for your 10-unit building. Okay, right there, you get another reason why single family homes it's easier. Now think about this. Let's say you have a 15-unit multi-unit, right? 15 of them, maybe 10. Let's make it 10-unit building, right? And let's say you have 10 single-family homes close to each other. Let's just not say they're in the same street, but let's say they're in the same city, just for a second, right? For me, the 10 single-family homes that are in the same city or just in the same proximity, they're close to each other, behave as if they're a multi, right? I address them. I see them as a multi, right? That's the way I look at it. But when I want to sell, let's say I need some cash. Right? Let's say I need $100,000 for one reason or another, right? It will be difficult for me to sell a fraction, not impossible, but difficult to sell a fraction of my 10-unit building in order to raise the $100,000 that I need. And it will be rather easy selling one or maybe 2 houses out of the 10 that I have without jeopardizing or compromising on all the other 8. So for me, that liquidation of between those 2 assets is very, very important, right? Sometimes we may run into that situation that we want to sell one. By the way, think about this. Sometimes we buy, we buy a piece of real estate, and we find out that for one reason or another, it's a crappy one, right? It happened to me. I've owned real estate that I've just felt somewhere between the property and the tenants it would attract. It was always creating me more noise in my life. When I see that, I try to get rid of those properties, right? For whatever reason, it just happens. Doesn't mean a loss, doesn't mean a bad, just the way it is, right? If you have one of your units or 2 of your units keep giving you a hard time or attracting bad tenants, and just always have like a annoyed by 1 or 2 of those units, you're stuck with them. But when you have 10 houses and you are annoyed by 1 or 2 of those houses that are just giving you hard time, hustle, noise, whatever you want to call it, you get rid of them and you keep 8. Very easy, right? Now, financing. It's easier to finance a single family homes, if that's what you're looking to do, right, than a multifamily. Much easier. Much easier with the appraisal. Much easier for the banking to come and finance and evaluate. It's usually an easier, cheaper process of inspection. Same thing, easier, inspecting, appraising and inspecting a single, a multi is going to be more expensive. So right there, you got multiple aspects why single family homes are, in my opinion, a much more attractive proposition or investment vehicle. Now, I'm not saying some you may decide that you want to buy a 10 unit in a bad, that it needs some, you're gonna transform it. You're gonna put some money into it and you're gonna rent it and you're gonna increase the rent. That for me is not a typical rental transaction. This is for me an improvement process. This is for me, you can do it with single family home too, but I'm just saying this is something more of maybe a flip or something like that. It's a little bit different, right? It's nothing wrong with it, of course. And, you will run into similar issues that I talked about doing this, once the building is completed and, it's occupied and you increase the rate. But you can do that for sure. So for me, single family homes have always been an easy vehicle, relatively liquid, easy to understand, easy to analyze, easy to gather the information, easy to work with realtors. If one is a jerk, kick him off and get another one. Usually multiple property management companies who will deal with that. So it's kind of, it's the vehicle that is easy to work with, easy to understand, easy to follow, easy to finance. Relatively, I'm not saying nothing is easy, right? It's not easy, but relatively in the world of real estate, it's easier to do a multiple single family home transaction, maybe one at a time, versus a building, versus, a land. You can buy a piece of land, right? If you buy just a small lot, that it's a buildable lot in a community, it's very easy type of a transaction, but it's probably going to be a little bit more, tricky to finance. And guess what? It's not generating any income unless you build on it or you rent it out for someone to put their tent on it, right? So it's not really generating. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not passing judgment. Is it good or bad? I'm just saying when people think of real estate, many times they start with single family and they want to graduate to multi, which is fine. I don't think it's necessarily something you need to do. Many times they see the big boys or the big corporations going after the complexes. Those are A and B classes. Those are in the multi-million dollars, typically type of investments. It's a different way to go about it. There's an economy of scale of those things. Usually, the smaller investors are not individually going after those. I'm not saying everybody, but not going after those type of an investment. So single family homes, don't dismiss it that quickly. It's good, it's simple, it's easy to comprehend, it's easy to sell relatively, it's easy to buy, it's easy to analyze, it's the American dream, it's a strong financial vehicle, it's relatively more recession proof. It's not a recession proof, but compared to others. So for all those reasons, and maybe there's more that I didn't mention or remember to mention, I think single family homes are a great vehicle for most investors, for many investors. And true, I think it's also good for those who are not sure where to start. It's a good starting point, and maybe you do graduate to other type of investment, but it's easy to digest, it's easy to understand, it's easy to work with. Relatively, nothing is easy about real estate, but when it comes to single family homes, I would categorize it as easier. That is what I wanted to say about single family homes. If you have questions related to this topic, please post them. If you have questions not related to the topic, please post them as well. I want to say, I want to take a minute to, talk about us, about Simply Do It, because actually more than one person already said you never talk about you guys. So I want to say a couple of words about myself. I've been investing in real estate since the year 2002. At the time I lived in Tel Aviv, Israel. I made few small investments in the US. In 2004, I moved to the States and started doing this on a larger scale. I have been involved with helping others since 2004 buy primarily single family homes in multiple states around the country. Areas such as Phoenix, Dallas, metros of Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, even Austin, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Charlotte, North Carolina, Orlando, Tampa, Nashville, what am I missing? Indianapolis, Chicago, Boise. I'm probably missing a few, right? So I've been in multiple areas around the country. personally investing, not in all of them, in some of them. Myself, doing rentals, doing flips, primarily working with others. So Simply Do It, what we do is we work with others. What does that mean? We have people on the ground in each metro that we like, such as Houston, Dallas, Nashville, Indianapolis, Tampa, Orlando, and others. And those local people help us, help you buy single family homes for rent. We take our time to find good agents and train them how we want them to look at, at real estate investing. So some of them know about investing, some of them know something about real estate investing. We train them, we coach them, we work with them to make them from good realtors they are to more knowledgeable about real estate investing, to know what we're looking for, how to approach real estate investing, what to avoid, what to look for, what's the processes. So we don't just take people and say, "Oh, you're a nice guy." We actually train them and then guide them through. I'm talking about the agents, and then we take our time in finding property management companies that are good property management companies, and we kind of make sure we get better fees, discounted fees for you, and we provide a lot of clout when working with those companies. This is not a perfect system. Sometimes we see that an agent changes their behavior and we replace them. Sometimes we see, it doesn't happen a lot, but once or twice it happened that the property management company started good and maybe for growth reasons they started doing poorly, and we let them go and we decided to bring someone else on board. So it's always evolving. There's always the challenges. We work with you closely on trying to help you address your questions and concerns and things that are going in your mind, whether you're based in California or in New York or Seattle, or if you're in Europe, in Tel Aviv, in other parts of the world. We work with investors from different backgrounds and different areas, and some know very little English, some know English very good by living in another country. So we work with you to find what works, what you should be investing in, what price range and what kind of property and where and how to go about it and what to do when there are issues coming up, because there are always issues coming up. We walk the path with you, support you in the process, help you buy 1, 2, multiple properties. A lot of the investors we work with, it's not a one-time kind of a deal. They do multiple transactions over years, and we want to be there and help you not just to buy your first one, but to buy multiple properties, hopefully for your benefit. Typically, we don't buy properties and sell them to you. We actually acquire them from the marketplace, but we help you analyze. We help you make sure you're going about it correctly. We are not attracted to crappy areas and crappy properties and lower income type of tenants. We like to go to the suburbs, to where families live. And I would call it the good schools area. It doesn't have to be perfect schools, but good schools and lower crime. And the nice single family home that will attract the family with the kids and the dog and maybe even 2 dogs in a nice suburb neighborhood. I call it boring investing, very boring. The more boring the property, the investment is, the more attractive or more sexy I find it. Boring for me means you can live wherever you choose and you can invest in another area, and the property will be relatively quiet in your life. It's not going to overtake your life. It's not going to be quiet. There's always things going on, right? Not always, but there's vacancy and repairs and property management and something. It's never, buy and forget. But what I'm trying to accomplish for our investors is as noiseless as possible, right? So it doesn't have to bother you on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis or a weekly basis. We work with property managers. We let them handle 95% of the noise. And we teach you how to look at properties. We actually invest in you more than we invest in real estate. How to analyze property, what to look for when you're looking at properties financially, quality. And then when you buy the property, how to be an owner. What do you need to do now that you own the property, moving forward, right? A lot of people think, for example, that once you own the property, then it's, the property manager is me when I'm not there. It's not really like that. Property managers try to do that, but they never really do that. There's more depth into it. There's more content into it. It's not just, black and white. There's a lot of gray area in between, and we teach you what do you need to pay attention to. when, once you're the owner, right? We don't expect someone who just bought their first rental properties, maybe sight and seen. A lot of our investors buy sight and seen, to actually know what their responsibility and what they need to do. So we want to teach you. And then when you hold a property and something comes up, we want to be there and help you with issues and questions and problems that will come up. Not if, but they will. And we're not perfect. We're not going to be able to solve any problem. But usually when we call the property management company with a request or a clarification, they respond to us differently. They will respond to you differently than just another client, because you come through their biggest account. Simply do it. And when I call, they respond differently because they want to make us happy. And making us happy is making you happy, right? And I'm going to say this to be very, very clear. If with all the experience and all the that I have, and I've been doing this for many years on a very large scale, and all the cloud that we carry, this is not a perfect system altogether. You will have issues. Property managers are people. They're not, they are, communication will fail. There will be misunderstanding, even when good intentions are involved. Doesn't mean catastrophe, but it will happen. There will be vacancy. There will be repairs. There will be maybe even evictions, right? All of those things are very common things that you should expect when owning real estate. If you understand that and acknowledge it, and you're saying, you know what, with all the noise that comes in, with evictions, not frequently, but it will happen every few years, maybe every 7 years or so, and miscommunication with the property manager, and vacancies, and repairs, and all of those noise that we try to minimize, but they're still there. If you remember the big picture, how this property can really impact your finances, primarily your future finances, and not focus on the noise that happens on an ongoing basis, you'll do well. The problem is some investors forget about that. And that's when they kind of lose the bigger picture perspective, which I understand. It's not fun to own a property that has been vacant for 2 months, especially when it closed during the holidays or during the end of the year. It's not fun, but it will rent. I've not met the property does not get rented. Doesn't mean, we may need to drop the rent, but it will get rented eventually, and it takes some time and it requires some patience. And that's something, hard, easy to forget. Especially if you're a beginner, and sometimes you need that person next to you to remind you that, or calling to the property manager and check to make sure they're doing everything correctly, and that's what we try to do. This is a long play. Single family homes, rental properties typically are not cash cows. It's not something you will necessarily build equity over the short period of time, but you will probably be building equity over the long term, 5, 10, 15 years. And a lot of times I see investors that have been doing it for many years, all of a sudden wake up 5 years later, it's like, oh my God, I barely did anything, and so much equity per house, multiple houses, this is making an impact on my financial future. This is not a get rich quick kind of a scheme. This is a slow path to wealth. You just have to be disciplined, remember the big picture, and be patient. Single family homes, they love time. If you're patient, you'll do well. You just have to be patient. It's easier said than done, I know. So with that said, I see a lot of people that I that are joined. People, one of my best friends, he just joined the live. Good to see you, my brother. I love you. And I see some of the names that I know in this industry, that are active. So it's good to see you guys as well. Feel free to post questions now about us, about single family homes, about investing. I'll be happy to take them. If there are no questions coming up, I'll wrap up the session for today. So just as a summary, I will say, I'm waiting for questions. And usually we have at least, I saw 2 people here that are usually asking questions. Yuval and Nir are one of the people who almost always ask questions. So hopefully one of you will kind of break the ice. But I just want to say, we talked about why at least I love single family homes so much. The American dream cliche, which is true, the liquid type of asset, the fact that the US economy is based on households who live in single family homes. We talked about the relatively easy evaluating and financing. And those are the main things why I think single family homes are great investment vehicles. I'll wait for 30 more seconds-ish or so for questions, and if they're not coming in, we will call it a wrap. And we are planning to hold another session in a week. I know it's kind of winter break and holiday, but probably we're still going to hold this session nonetheless. It's my therapy, not yours. I like to talk about it, and I do it even if there are 3-4 people on the line. So something that I enjoy doing, sharing. And of course, if you want to meet with us, speak with us in person, I'm actually wrapping up this session and going to 3 meetings with new investors today. So by all means, get in touch with me through Facebook, through email. We can talk, in more intimate, surrounding about your needs, your concerns, your questions. No problem. We do it every week, of course, multiple times a week. So that's what we are here for. By all means. Very good. No questions. No questions are coming in. I guess it was very clear. I want to thank everyone for joining us this week. Again, like I said, we do it on a weekly basis. 11 a.m. Pacific time, California time, Friday. With that said, have a terrific rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And if you are going on a winter break, enjoy your break. Hopefully you're doing some fun stuff. We will see you in 1 week. Have a terrific rest of the day. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye from California.